It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I'll tell you that right now. All right, so we have the series of tweets. Throw these tweets up here, Joe. This is Senator Jim Hendren, and this is what he tweeted out. I wanted to talk about it. He said, here's a link to the legislation that creates the Arkansas Tax Reform and Relief Task Force, okay? And this is tweet 1 of 7. Tweet 2 of 7 reads, we have two purposes. 1, reform our tax code by simplifying and modernizing. 2, as title says, determine best method to cut taxes, relief, that will be fair and make us more competitive. Tweet 3 of 7 reads, Arkansas has the third highest sales tax relative to personal income in the country, primarily because special interests have successfully carved out over $1 billion in sales tax exemptions. That is a fact. 4 of 7. Anyone who says that the task force's purpose is to raise taxes is being intellectually dishonest. I expect good policy debate about justification of exemptions, but hopefully we can avoid straw man arguments about tax increases. All right, now stop. This, to me, should make everyone hold on to their wallets a little tighter. And the only reason I say that is because the establishment's MO, and Jim Hendren is the establishment, is to come. I mean, it's almost the more forceful they come out against, forceful they come out for a specific policy, there's always something else going on in the background. So it makes me kind of nervous. But again, I want to eat crow so bad, folks, you have no idea. I want to eat crow so bad because that means government would have gotten smaller and we would be more competitive when we would be less taxed. I mean, we are taxed less is what I'm trying to say. We would have some good things going on. I'm just very skeptical because these tax farces are not a good way to govern. They are a way to whittle down legislators who are more easily controlled. I'm sorry. I mean, for some of you on that task force, you might want to ask yourself, did I get put on this task force because they think they can control me? Now, not all of you. I'm just saying you might want to consider that being a possibility. I mean, it's for your own good to consider that. You should be considering that every morning when you wake up, especially if you're in politics. Is, am I being manipulated? I mean, if you don't have those thoughts, you need to look around where you're at, okay? So he says, if you're going to talk about raising taxes, that we're being intellectually dishonest. I think we have good reason to be skeptical of them raising taxes. Because if the government, they don't like this argument, but if the government ends up getting more money than they are getting now, that would be a tax increase. Can we agree on that definition? If the government ends up getting more money than they're getting now, that would be a tax increase. That would mean you didn't cut taxes enough other places. I don't think that's being intellectually dishonest. Now, maybe you do. I am just trying to warn because I've been down this path before. And just because you say a bill says one thing, we've been over this, it actually accomplishes the complete opposite. And in this case, Senator Hendren has a clear record of saying that his bill would have ended Medicaid expansion in 2015. And by the way, somebody give me a call if it has ended yet. He said it over and over again. Very upset, very defensive when people called out and read the bill and said, you're not ending the program. Right? So we have, cue up this audio. Here's Governor Asa Hutchinson back when they were trying to cut military retirement tax, the military retirement income tax. So if you're retired military, it was going to cost us $13 million to just absorb the tax cut, right? $13 million. And the governor said this. No, it's fine.
Please note that the other conservative and responsible approach was when it came to providing the tax cuts that's still going through the system for the military retirees, that we wanted to make sure that was paid for. So we didn't say, well, we're just going to absorb that. We have to pay for it. We have to close off exemptions. And so there are many that, not many, but there were some that were saying we don't like to have those offsets. We don't like to have a paid for. We just want to absorb that into our budget. That's not a conservative, responsible approach, and we took that approach. I feel very comfortable with it.
Stop. So what the governor is saying there, this was back when they were trying to offset the military retirement tax cut plan. He's saying that to just absorb it or to make cuts elsewhere is not conservative. He says it's not conservative. Now, again, very disconcerting or very concerning to me, because you have Asa defining what conservatism is, and the way he's defining it is actually liberalism. That's very concerning to me. We've been over this before. But so I think we could say the governor has an aversion, okay, to cutting spending so that we can have tax cuts. And I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that the task force is going to do whatever the governor wants. Call me crazy. I just think it being chaired by Senator Jim Hendren, the governor's nephew, I have a feeling that there's meetings taking place and there's going to be some sort of plan that the governor is. Let me just say this: can you imagine if they came out and the governor was opposed, like legitimately opposed to what they were doing? I don't think that's going to happen, and I think he'd have to be born, yesterday. I mean, it just is what it is. Now, fast forward to today. That was last year. This is this year. And we now know that military retirement tax cut was actually a tax increase. Because while they did give our brave men and women who have served long enough to retire in the military a tax break on their income taxes here in Arkansas, they raised taxes on digital downloads. They raised taxes on candy and soda. And when it's all said and done, the government actually got more money at the end of the day than they did before. It didn't actually offset. It wasn't even an offset. It wasn't neutral. They ended up getting more money. And Senator Hendren says, no, we didn't get more money. We took that extra $8 million and we transferred it into a Medicaid trust fund as if because they got the money and immediately spent it or shifted it somewhere else. It's not a tax increase. It's very strange, but it just shows you how defensive they are. And by the way, that data comes from the Bureau of Legislative Research. And I know you want to twist. In committee, they like to, especially after this program airs, they like to go to committee and then they like to twist Department of Finance and administration officials' arms to get them to just publicly agree with them. There are more people that listen to this radio program, though, than are in their little committee room, even if it is in the MAC building with no cameras, so nobody can know what's going on. People want to do your business in secret. All right. Goes on. The governor, Asa Hutchinson, has already proposed an income tax cut approximately of $180 million. The task force's recommendations may ask for more, less, or modify, but rest assured there will be no proposals for net tax increases. Well, of course, neither was the military retirement tax. That wasn't a proposal for a net tax increase. You guys were claiming it was revenue neutral. I'm not suggesting. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me clarify, Jim. I'm not suggesting that your actual proposal will be so overt that you claim we need more money and we're going to score it and we're going to show that the government is going to get more money after this is all said and done. I'm not claiming that you're going to be that transparent. I'm claiming that at the end of the day, when the bill's passed, I just have a feeling that the government is going to end up bigger than when this whole process started. And by bigger, I mean getting more money from the people on a yearly basis. That's all I'm trying to say. And this is what happens when you get into the whole revenue neutral mindset, when it's a tax shift instead of an actual tax cut, because you're putting your elbows out and you're protecting the nest egg of the government at all costs. And I'm just saying, in order to do this right, you have to be willing to allow the government to have less money. And in order to give that money back to the people, you have to find places to cut. And right now, your philosophy is completely different. And look, I'm not coming out against eliminating exemptions. That's called broadening the base, right? Lowering rates and broadening the base. I get that. I'm not coming out necessarily against that. I think that but I'm saying when your mentality is we have to make sure we are taxing the people at a maximum rate or a maximum amount of things, it's a different mentality than saying, what is the minimum amount of money the government needs to function? That should be your mentality. And you could, if that's your mentality, if that's your base goal, of course you can broaden the base. But you should be trying to find a number, and that number should be what is the minimum amount of money it takes to run the government. And that conversation is one that would upset John Brummett, Max Brantley, and everyone else who gets money from, and everyone else who likes to, let me just say, who enjoys a big government from a philosophical point of view. That would actually upset them. You might actually have some negative articles coming from John Brummett instead of the ones praising Asa Hutchinson as a pragmatic conservative or, mainstream conservative. Mainstream conservative that has increased spending $600 million. His sixth tweet of 7, Senator Jim Hendren. Unfortunately, some will probably attempt to distort the task force's duty to review exemptions in an effort to protect their own carve-outs. Nevertheless, we will do our job and thoroughly review the Arkansas tax code from top to bottom. Again, I'm just sitting here hoping that you guys are right. I'm hoping you're right. I just don't know if we agree on the definition of what conservative is. I don't think we disagree. I don't think we agree on the definition of words. Tax cut. Anyway, I laid out those definitions. Maybe we do. Maybe we do. But we will wait and see on this. Let me just end with this. Say, Paul, why are you so skeptical of the task force? Why do you think it may end up with giving more money to the government than the government has now? Well, because of this. Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum, on the very first day that the task force met, you had Jim Hendren there, and you had I can't remember the House guy who's head of it. Is it Lane Jean? So you got Lane Jean, you got Jim Hendren, but you got Jeremy Gillum, the Speaker of the House, and he basically starts the meeting and brings everybody together, and he says a few words. Now this is kind of bad audio, but I think if you listen. This is what Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum said the very first meeting of the Tax Reform Task Force. Listen.
It's going to be, I think, a very robust debate that will take place over the next year and a half as to our tax policy here in Arkansas. And I know a lot has been kind of written about kind of the mandate, so to speak, and it seems to always be mentioned that it's about which tax cuts are going to be put forth in the next General Assembly, and I think you are all familiar with the fact that that is not necessarily the overriding mandate of this task force. It is to look at reform and relief and making Arkansas competitive in our surrounding areas to make sure that we have a viable tax policy. So,
okay, stop. That was so strange when he said, I don't know if you heard that, he said, everybody's been writing about the tax cuts that we're going to recommend to the next General Assembly. That is not necessarily what this task force is for. Well, then what is it for then? I mean, maybe he just misspoke. I'm not sure, but that from the very beginning has stimulated my skepticism, and it's a healthy skepticism because I don't trust these guys. We got to take a break. Back in a minute.